to Small But Massive Podcast, Series 14. You can get all the past podcasts that we've done on all the social medias and YouTube. But today's guests are Andy and Chris, musicians, songwriters, I should say fathers too, and all round really good lads. And the biggest thing of the lot, you're the two-piece force of the band called Bonnevilles. Yep. You're most welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, lads, when you were growing up, I don't want to say many moons ago because, I mean, even I'm many moons after you, so it's kind of, it'd be an insult for me to say many moons ago.
No, not really. No,
so
no.
in my case, two quadruple moon backs.
Yeah.
And for you guys, growing up in Lurgan, you both grew up?
Well, I'm actually from Banbridge.
So you've got Banbridge.
Yeah,
and
Banbridge.
Lurgan.
Sunny Lurgan.
So it sounds deadly. It was a two-piece. If we were a two-piece Welsh harmony band, it'd be Lurgan, Banbridge. But we're not. So because there's two of us here, it's like a double barrel effect. So if any one of you want to speak at any time, so I suppose, yet again, Alaskans, when you were growing up at school and about the areas you were born in, what kind of musical influences had you got?
Well, for me, it all came from my brothers, youngest of four older brothers, and they were all big into heavy metal, classic rock, heavy metal. And my dad he played drums in Noble show bands, so there was always music on. But definitely, influence would have been from my brothers, and it would have been heavy metal. That's how I, got into drums through that,
And your father, you mentioned the show bands there. Yeah. That's something back in the day was a huge thing in north and south of Ireland. Massive thing.
Yeah, I was too young at the time, so I remember going to see and play once when I was very young, and it was big, playing big halls. I remember telling me stories about playing big halls and nothing was mic'd up. You know, like even if he wanted to, if he had to play harder to get above the crowd and stuff like that.
He was hoping that the front mics would be his drum sound. That's how it maybe was. And I mean, at them days, they wouldn't have the huge PAs they have now for you guys. And so that influence, I suppose, when you were growing up, you're saying about the heavy metal and all. And then when you went to your first, for you, Andy, when you were growing up, what kind of influences you got in your world of rock and roll?
Well, I grew up listening to my mum and dad's records, but there was always music on in the house, but it was always it would have been just the radio.
Yeah.
But whatever, you got that. But there was a lot of, I have this memory of a lot of sort of Charlie Pride records and Kenny Rogers and stuff like that.
Well, Charlie Pride would have been, remember, he was one of the first to come over here through Aiken Promotions back in the day.
Is that right?
Aye, so he would have been, someone that I think the great Jim Aiken, God rest him, I think he was one of the first big kind of iconic stars that he brought in.
Very good.
Aye, so
I have a vague recollection of this story. Yes,
so it was kind of. I suppose I know with promoters now it's huge. Everybody can draw on, but maybe that's a connection to what you were saying there about the music.
Well, you don't know. I mean, but it was like that in Ray Charles. There was always a few soul records kicking about and things like that, and Beach Boys and the Beatles and sweet classics and stuff. But when I got into playing the guitar, a woman called Fra McCann, she would take a class, and it was. I remember asking my dad, I want a guitar. I was 8 years of age. Yeah. So he went and got
How did you go about it? Did you say, just
I want a guitar?
Just simple as that.
I want a guitar because in my imagination, well, Elvis was always huge. I have an uncle that's an Elvis impersonator as well, you see, so it was always...
That's every conversation about deep one, isn't it?
Every conversation. He calls his wife Priscilla and his house is called Graceland and all. He's a lovely man. But so Elvis was always kicking about. So, but the icon of the guitar player, singer, was always big in my imagination.
Yeah. And who back then, Andy, would have been? Just for people listening, who would have been?
Probably Elvis. When I think of that iconography, that would be that.
Yeah.
If almost a silhouette.
You've got a similar cuff there in your hair.
There we go. Obviously, I'm betraying my deeper, darker self. But so Fra McCann, and she would teach us in the class, and it would be all these girls and me, and I was too young to appreciate the situation at the time, but she would teach us.
You're too young to court. You're telling the people out there.
Very too young. I was innocent as the Drivens. No,
27.
27. But she would teach you how to strum and sing.
Yeah.
Just chords. There's no scales, no theory, no nothing. Just strumming, singing, which stands by me to this day. But she always did like a pop hits of the day, so it would be just like ABBA songs and the odd whatever. But I think what that's done, I'm sort of self-analysing myself a wee bit when I say this.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
I always thought that was a part of why I appreciate melody in music. So our music's heavy, but it's melodic. There's always a tune there. Yeah. And I think that might be where that come from, that grounding.
That hooking into that wee hook.
The pop hook,
yeah.
you know. And that then then as I got older, then I got into soul and blues and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, when it was sort of 14, 15, 16.
So you were starting to form a sound then. And
aye, you could say that.
And what about you, Chris, at that time? Were you formulating
I remember how I got on the drums. I was a huge Metallica fan.
Yeah.
And there was I really wanted to learn Sad But True. And I thought, that sounds awesome on drums. I want to learn to play drums. And my dad, even though he was a drummer, he never ever, not once forced me or ever said go and play drums or anything. It was I picked it up by myself. I was like, I want to learn that there. Dad was like, well, there's a drum kit. Here's a book. Learn the right way. Don't learn from me because I got too many bad habits. And
cruising in all them dance halls and all them girls throwing sweeties and all at them.
He probably
strawberries. Would you like a wee pie there? I cooked a wee pie there for you.
Rock on, bro.
Rock and sausage roll there for you.
A pie on a cup of tea.
Thank you, Andrew, Christopher, for coming to our show. Sorry.
Yeah, but now I'm thinking back, actually, he probably just said, "Oh, you learn yourself," because he couldn't be bothered teaching me.
Yeah.
That's probably it. But it was, all I was playing along with at the start was just love playing along to songs, and that's how. I mean, I never learnt that song that I really wanted to learn until way on later, because it took a while to get to that stage.
But you thought it's like anything at the start. You think you can jump on and I can nail that, but it's how technical it was after that.
Yeah, so that's where it's a bit different, because Andy is obviously the songwriter, and he's all his melodies are awesome. It's all about I just hit stuff.
Oh, well, it wasn't just that. I think what you're saying there is you've got a great chemistry together, and when you plug in, magic will happen. And sometimes you could get 5 people couldn't get the power and the control you 2 guys get, and you've seen that with bands. In the past.
Probably where we have our heaviness is because of my heavy metal background.
There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt. But it's funny you should say that. I was talking to someone during the week, and I was mentioned this to Chris on the way up. We're completely separate from what we were talking about, but what it takes to be in a band, for what you're doing here, you're teaching all, doing this great thing.
Thank you.
But it's not about being a good musician isn't enough.
Yeah.
Being a good musician is part of it.
Yeah.
It's only a part of it, and sometimes it's not even the biggest part of it.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing out in the road with each other, what you're expecting as a human being, that's first.
Yeah. The respect of each other.
That comes before the music.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Then the music will work. And if it doesn't, you can't.
You're a bloodline. You sort of just
absolutely. There's no two ways about it. And
yeah.
if you don't get on, you could have the best guitar player in the world, the best drummer in the world, the best bass player in the world, the best singer in the world, and they could all fucking hate each other. You know what I mean? And that's going to mean nothing. Whereas you could take a guy that's good at guitar, okay at drums, dead on bass player, and can carry a tune, and they could turn around and be the best band in the world.
Yeah.
So you're saying just okay at drums then?
Just okay.
Just okay.
Just being okay is enough.
You're a good lad. You're okay at drums.
It takes a lot of years to get the full apprenticeship in this man's eyes. When we tell people how long you were together, they go, oh God, he's a hard hitter. But see, and then what about your first bands when you were going,
Well, my first band, it was awesome because in my secondary school, I remember the music teacher there, what was her name? It's really bad. We called her Kit Kat because she only had 4 fingers. Because it's terrible, isn't it? She was a piano player, but then she was only there for a while. She used to teach you recorder, silly things, piano. And then she left. She was old. She's an older lady, and she left. And then Mr. Rafferty came in, remember? And he was younger, and he was the one who brought in guitars and music.
He's more hip.
Sorry?
But he was more hip.
He was definitely, he was a new lad, and he was always he was an awesome musician as well. I know he played in bands and all, but he was the one that, there was musical instruments in the room.
Yeah, not just the wee triangle.
Not just that, yeah. And it was kind of through seeing all that and then me deciding wanting to go play drums that we had a first band. It was a thrash metal band called Shrapnel. Oh, Shrapnel.
Give us a verse there.
Oh, they were class. I remember Shrapnel.
I did sound and all.
I did sound.
Was that the sort of band that took you out among people first?
Yeah, well, that would have been really small, like local, really small. Well, as everyone starts.
We have to play somewhere
course,
in the local, and I think it's important, I suppose, guys out there for younger people that are listening, that it's all right to play the local hall at the start and local place. You have to learn, or your school hall, or your
as long as you're doing it. Paddy. That's the thing. You have to do it.
Yeah.
And if you're procrastinating too much, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
Get out there and get it done. Even if you get it done by no one ever started perfect.
No.
You're going to be rubbish. It's okay. Embrace it. Get better.
You have to have the rusty string for it becomes all solid and silk.
Not the rust off it. Exactly.
So, what about yourself, Andy? About bands when you were growing up in
school
Lurgan?
band? Aye. So I was. I played a bit of I played guitar, as I told you, and then a fella come to me and he said, "Would you play bass?" And I didn't even know what a bass was, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was probably 13 or 14 maybe, and it was a Smiths. Just doing Smiths songs.
There you are.
So they were big at the time, and they were the wee Smiths weirdo gang who I had nothing to do with.
the flowers.
They were. There's all walking around being all reading poetry and all, and I was just wanting to play football and smoke fags. But I was just, I'd be in a band. So I'm a big guy for saying yes to everything and then going, what is it?
But you had, but it's like sitting here now. You're veterans talking away. It's like throwing yourself in there. Sometimes that at first initial throw on stage is probably you're not too sure about it, but it's one of the moments that you have to build upon, and that's where I suppose. Yeah. And then with going through there, you both had the sort of school bands. You guys both met in 2009. Is that right?
It was a wee bit before that.
Probably a good bit with other bands, yeah.
So we actually played another band before this.
Deadly.
So I was playing, Chris was playing a band called Childless Thoughts, mates of ours again from Lurgan and Banbridge.
Was there a wee scene there at that?
It was a wee garage rock scene. It was all around the time. All the like the White Stripes and the Von Bondies and the Sights and the Detroit Cobras and all that Detroit garage scene. So all those indie record labels of the early noughties, they were starting to come up and they were sending bands over to Europe, and then they would play in Ireland and whatever, and we'd go and see them. Places like Aunt Annie's.
There you go,
small,
yeah.
So you go and see.
But you were seeing international acts come in.
See, this is the important bit.
Do you know what I mean?
This is the important bit. That's what I was saying to you earlier. So I was watching them. I'm a bit of a quick study, so I'm watching them and watching what they're doing, and they're selling merch. Our bands aren't selling merch. Why are our bands not selling merch? The band, they're on the merch stand as you going in to see this band from Detroit, whose album you adore.
You think they're going to stand up? You think they're all swanning backstage and all, but not.
And because we're all embarrassed about money in Ireland, and we don't talk about that, and no one wants to. If you go and ask for how much is a T-shirt, I should just keep it. I still do that. You know what I mean?
All the time. How many T-shirts did you give away today?
So he stopped. I'm not allowed to go near the merch now. But
£15
for a T-shirt.
Yeah, tick the box. I could have just said, Andy, you're going to bankrupt the band. There's a story now, Chris, more or less saying you thinking, we had 100 T-shirts.
Yeah, there's 5 missing. Where have they gone? It's like, don't worry about it.
We've come off tour down money houses, working on no merch.
But that activated your first sort of independent view of, look, it's happening here in front of my eyes. Is that right?
Well, yeah, and then. So then, and when I sort of skip forward a wee bit, but the band of Childless Thoughts that Chris was playing, he was playing drums, and it was brilliant crack. They would go in and they'd set up smoke machines, and the rehearsals only start at midnight, and you bring a carry out with you.
Smoke machines and everything.
Well, I was 16, and these guys were all off their heads, and I was like, what's going on?
Well, I wasn't.
Andy was respectable.
Well, you came a bit later than that.
I came in a bit later than that. There was somebody else playing bass in it, but I came in. But we ended up playing a few gigs. Yeah, we did some recordings. It was great crack. We had great crack. But then I had the impetus then to do the 2-piece. So I was at different drummers. I was using a couple of other guys. And Chris was playing in every band in the county. And I just didn't want to ask him. And
that's because he was really a hot drummer. He was
available.
We'll bring back that one earlier on. He was a top drummer.
He was a brilliant drummer.
There you go.
Just use that bit.
But a couple of different guys, and brought them to gigs. And the first paid gig we ever had was in Sandino's in Derry.
There you go.
And we got brought this other guy in, and we rehearsed the songs, and he was grand. We got to the gig, and he was a nervous wreck. And I went, I don't know if we can do this. But then eventually, I said, "Listen, Chris, I have a couple of paid gigs here. Do you want them?" And he went, "Oh, yeah, I'll take them."
Brilliant.
And that was that.
But it was I was joined basically to help out.
Yeah.
And
Never
I remember
So there's not been a total commitment yet.
Well, that's funny because there's a story around that where we years later we were on doing a BBC interview.
Welcome to the BBC interview.
And it was kind of like, it's like, Andy, you've actually never asked me to join the band. I've just been helping out this whole time. It's like, yeah, just stuck around.
Yeah. So he joined live on the BBC.
So when you did get the band together, prepping for your first album, were you thinking to yourself at the time, right, we've got a new sound for the north of Ireland. There is, as we chatted, you're a punk blues full-on explosion, and but you're steeped in as we talked about, the Delta Trip, and all them artists would have been inspiring you, whereas maybe other artists at the time starting off would have been inspired, like you were saying earlier on, because the pop charts or whatever it is. So what kind of wee phase, just for people out there listening, how long does that wee phase take before you came along and says, right, we've got an album for us? And how long for yourselves? Or
well, I would say probably by the time we got the first album out, we'd probably been doing the band thing for maybe nearly 2 years, or maybe at that point.
Yeah.
But we'd got, because it's rooted in the blues and rock and roll. I mean, let's face it, we're not inventing anything. We're not the most original band in the world, but we do try to be as original as we can with what we have.
Yeah.
So what you can do is you can just take a blues song and just play it hard and heavy, and then that's the thing.
Yeah.
And then
you took a different angle to that, because sometimes you would, for people out there, good suits and fighting boots was the first album. So you have blues artists out there and they take the blues a certain way, but you guys keep that train effect, pumping the whole time, and you do it your way. So and as I say, you've took a long time. You're a long time together, building a good fan base. But when that album came out, for people out there listening, had you decided then, I need to go here to record it, or I'm going to get these people?
That was a big
Was
deal.
there a thought, just for people?
Well, we actually recorded it. We couldn't get a studio because whenever we were talking about it, no one could understand what I was saying. Even, I'd be honest, Chris didn't know. And I had an idea for a sound. Now, this is going around the houses, but it won't be long.
You're all right,
I set up...
This is a Ferrari podcast. Take your time.
I set up a little record label called Motor Sounds Records, and I'd met a band on MySpace. Second time MySpace has been mentioned since we've been here. And
showing how young we are.
Exactly. I couldn't believe how connected we are, Paddy. And I couldn't believe that their album wasn't released. They were from Japan. It was an English guy living in Japan. They're called The Roots. So there was a label in Switzerland who should have put them out, called Voodoo Rhythm, and they weren't put. And I said, surely Voodoo's going to put you out. And he says, he's been talking to me, but he's been procrastinating, and I'm getting a bit pissed off.
So this is a label that you...
So I says, listen, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll do it. I'll set up a label and I'll put your record out. And he went, right, let's do it. So I set up Motor Sounds Records, got a distribution agreement.
Deadly.
Put their first album out on CD, a couple of thousand copies, did the whole thing, put out another 3 or 4 records. By then, we'd started. We were developing our sound. I'd been talking to Chris Jacks, the guy in The Roots. How did you record that album? And he says, I did it this way. And he told me, and he got a multi-track tape recorder.
Old style.
Old school. And he says...
Would that have been just for people out there listening that mightn't even know what that is? So, and back in the day, so it went from tip, to 2-track.
Yeah.
So did you go that style? And,
we got a Tascam 688. So it was a big brute of a unit.
Yeah.
It was with a multi-track tape things. This was probably the highest end.
Yeah.
But these things by then were absolutely, you pull them out of skips, right? Yeah. You remember people were throwing them away. They didn't want them.
But they regretted it.
Oh, very much so. You couldn't buy these things now. They're worth thousands now. Yeah. I found again, Lisburn had one. I bought it. I think I got it off them for 200 quid.
There you go.
Brought it down. Perfect working order. We went into the basement of the Sonic Hall in Banbridge, and we recorded it ourselves. And then I mixed it and did the vocals in our spare room.
Well, it sounded mighty.
But the thing of it was, I knew I couldn't get anything approximating the sound that I had in my head if I went into a commercial studio. Because I probably couldn't have told them what I wanted, and I needed that space and time to work at it and go, how do I do this?
And also too, it might have been squeezed to death. And you would have lost the whole essence of what you were trying to do.
Yeah.
Well, is that something then when you went in and done the album, instantly that sort of shows that you were independent right from the word go in that situation?
I don't know if I would give everybody this advice, but I'd been doing it long enough. I'd been in and out of that many bands and cover bands and doing the blues circuits and doing all this sort of stuff. I know, and I always say this to people, you don't need to know what you want straight away, but if you know what you don't want, that's a good starting point. You can rule things out. Yeah. But I also knew that with what we were doing, no label was going to take us on because we were untested. So we had to do it ourselves.
A bit like the old blues guys of the old, where they used to go on the highways, they print so many CDs, they put it in the back of the thing, they go and record, they pop out, it's there, the product, they're on the road. You seem to have took that old, that's all right to say, that old, completely, that sort of old template that is steeped, and we don't need piles of fancy this or fancy that. We don't need this and that. We just need, this is where we're going.
We need the space to do it, and it's easy. But with what we do, it's too easy to overcomplicate it, especially these days. You've got that much technology, and the technology is fantastic. But for us, it's not necessary. And if it's there's a temptation to use it. So if you just try to keep it as simple as possible. But we got that first album out. And it did good work for us, and then that got us onto the record label. Then the record labels come to us.
Brilliant. So, and that was an American label that come on board.
Initially, it was a UK label. They did the second album, Folk Art, and then now we're on an LA label.
Brilliant. And could you ever imagine that you started off and where you started, and now you've got an LA label, and plus the fact that you've stayed by one of the oldest roots music in the world. And but so. I'm just speaking now about you recording the album. A few weeks back, I seen you perform at Stendhal Festival. Connor Keys was beside me, and Darren. Both
Darren Matthews.
Darren Matthews. Darren was wearing your T-shirt. I don't know if you had scared him. Which one of you had scared the pants out of him?
We paid him.
He said to me you were going to beat him up with it. No, but he was proud to wear it. And we went over and seen you. It was a packed crowd. And Wally from Wardle and Cannon played a tune at the end. So how was that like? Just pausing that for the live one. You know the way as last couple of years it's been kind of, we haven't been able to move. So now with festivals happening, and you are going to a gig after this tonight, which is brilliant. And so tell us about that experience, being back out in front of people. What was it like for you both?
It was awesome. It was a wee bit emotional. I remember it was emotional in different ways for me anyway. Like I remember before going, I was nervous, and I would never get nervous before gigs, never ever get excited. And even before it, I was ringing up Andy, I was like, man, I'm having nightmares here of forgetting songs, literally dreaming about this, of forgetting songs and forgetting how to set up my drum kit. I was having dreams about this. I'm not like me at all. So there's a bit of, a year and a half of not playing live shows. We've done some wee live streams, and it's not the same. It was...
You needed the feel, the heat of people and that movement. Yeah.
So there was a bit of fear there, getting out there again, but... whenever you get on, it was just awesome. People were there, and it just changed
brilliant.
It.
And great venue too.
And what's funny is just saying that, it was a brilliant crowd in front of you. there's been different people come up here to perform, even those in the sort of lockdown when we stuck with the rules and everything, social distance and all that there. And you'd be surprised they just started playing and then just stopped and forgot their own lyrics. And so it's not, and they know who they are, and it's not a thing. They just started again and goes, where was I going with that?
It's a long time to be not doing a thing that you.
But it's strange. It's that sort of, I suppose, it's that muscle memory, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so the reason I brought up festivals, because I suppose people need to know out there that the Bonnevilles just don't sit from here to there in Northern Ireland. You are a band that tours, and just for people out there, what about other festivals out there away from Ireland in general for yourselves? Have you got certain ones you go to, or is there?
We've quite a few, but they've been hit bad. I would say our favourite one is in southern Germany, one called Craic Fest.
Do you want to tell people about that?
Craic Oak Fest is again. You know yourself, you become friends with people.
Yeah.
So you get the booking. And so a guy called Christian Steidel is a beautiful man. And he set up a festival that was mirroring a thing called the Deep Blues in Mississippi.
Deadly.
And so he got permission to use the Deep Blues name. And he set it up in Munich. And I remember us getting the email. This is before we got signed to Alive, and Christian had sent an email through. He says, I'd really like to book the band for this festival I'm setting up in Munich. It's the first year we'd done it. And you're going to be playing with, so far, he says, it's James Legg, Left Lane Cruiser, Guadalupe Plata, and another band. And then we want you are going to be going on third or whatever it is. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
This was it. Left Lane Cruiser.
Because some of them bands, people know it. Yeah. They're your idols.
They were our idols. And they're on the label that we're on now, you see.
Oh, man, it's like one big brotherhood.
It is.
Yeah.
So I said, Chris, we have to do this. The money was, I can't remember, it was like €400 or €500 or something. I said, I don't care, we're going.
Yeah.
We'll take a loss if we have to.
Yeah. Because it was a massive thing to go.
For us, it was huge. Because those were the sort of bands that if they're coming through Ireland, we'd have been contacting the Burger. Can we get the support?
Yeah.
So now we're getting asked.
Brilliant.
Right?
Brilliant.
So we go and play the festival. Backstage, hanging out with people whose albums, you've got all their albums, right? And you're trying to be cool.
Was it shaky knees?
Shaky knees.
Shaky knees.
There was a lot of Jamesons.
Was there a lot of shaky knees and Jamesons?
There was a lot of whiskey drunk, but it was great. There were, and you know yourself, Paddy, there's no egos in the room. Everyone's humble. Everyone's had the rock and roll knocked out of them. It's all nice. Everyone's a nice guy, and they're fantastic people. But we're buzzing just being on the bill. Yeah. We go up and play our set. Afterwards, one of the guys comes. He says, "Have you got any new stuff recorded?" He says, "Well, we're just literally recording a new album, and we're in the middle of writing. We'll be going to the studio soon." He says, "You should send that to Patrick from Alive." This was music I couldn't believe. I'd really like to do that. How do
trying to be cool.
How do I do that then?
Another half bottle, please.
Yeah. And he says, no, stay in touch. I said, okay. So the next year, Christian decides then to move the festival from Munich, the middle of Munich, out to the countryside, which is where it is now. And it's in the foothills of the Bavarian Alps. It's absolutely gorgeous, unbelievable. It's like Teletubby land. Beautiful. And so who's on the bill? It's only he's basically moved the same festival into out from the city to the country. So he's got Left Lane Cruiser, but it's a weekender now. So Left Lane Cruiser, James, like all the same bands, and he's got the Soledad brothers, or the guys from the Soledad, who were my heroes from back in the day, and I couldn't believe it. And I'm sitting back just talking to these guys. We go on, play our set. The guys from the Soledad brothers, Left Lane, will come up to us and saying, "Has Patrick heard your stuff? You really need to get some of this to Patrick." And we went, "Well, funny you should mention it. We're going home to record our new album." That was Arrow Pierce My Heart, that turned out to be. Yeah. And so I said, "Well, can you hook us up?" And he said, "Yep." Stayed in touch. We sent them stuff. They sent it on to Patrick. I'm driving down the road one day, coming to rehearsal to him. Phone rings from LA. And it's Patrick from Alive.
There you are.
"I heard your album. I love it."
All because of that festival.
All because of that festival.
So what you're saying out there for people, just that sometimes you just might see the dollar and it's not weighing up, but what you guys done was you went with a gut feeling.
Completely.
And how much was it worth to meet all them people that you looked up to?
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
And
They're still our friends to this day. You know,
That's
we
amazing.
we're lucky. We call our musical heroes friends.
That's amazing. I mean, and the people know that now, and they might be springboarding you two guys flat out, like, I've got an idea, this is a song, do you want to like the ticket? But just for people out there, you do a lot of touring. Is there any wee sort of nuggets of stories you want to tell people about, or any that were sort of test your well-being, let's say? Funny, Andy, you're looking at me and I think you're right.
I'm just trying to. I'm always, whenever people ask me about the road stories, I'm always sort of hesitant and disappointed because it's not as glamorous as people think.
No, I know that, but I want to hear that one about at heartburn one day for a full day, you know.
I will tell you. I'll tell you a cracker. Right. So we played one of the last tours we did, but no, it wasn't the last tours we did. It was a few years back. We played in Turin in Italy, right?
You play in some cool places.
Oh, we were very lucky.
Yeah.
So we did a big 3-week epic drive around Europe, and we're playing everywhere, went right up to Serbia.
That was a tour that you were constantly up. We were playing such and such, and
walking around.
Well, you seem to on that tour pick up a lot of kind people along the way. Is that all right to say?
You can't do it without them.
Now, did you want to just say about that tour and how? Because you could.
Well, we did 3 weeks. We picked up our gear in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's a company we use over there, and you go into this room, and it's just.
We drove from England. We had our own gear.
On that tour?
Aye.
Was it? Oh, you're right. That's right. That was the Black Band.
Yeah.
Aye, but anyway, we ended up in Serbia and all sorts of places, Croatia and everywhere, but we ended up coming.
Some of them countries you mentioned there, a lot of people wouldn't even think about going touring there. How did that come about? Like, you know, because they are them. You know, you get the normal cities. You know, Milan, London.
Yeah.
You know, you seem to go off the.
We do.
Aye.
Yeah,
but that's the blues way, isn't it?
Well, it is. You know, people ask you, and it's all. As you know, it's, you know, everybody. You're saying about people picking up friends along the way. You can't do it without. Without people, and that's what I was saying earlier on about sometimes being a musician, being the best musician isn't always the most important thing.
Yeah.
You got to be sound, and if you're not sound, you're not getting invited. No one's bringing you to the party.
There's no room at the ball.
There's no room at the ball.
And so into your second album. You know, after I suppose your first album was out there, because I could see it in the north, like people were picking up, and there was lots of people following you. Did you decide then that was you, Chris, getting in full time now in the second album?
Yeah.
And so, what was the kind of prep for that? Was it the same kind of recording setup, the same way that you'd done it before?
No. Well, from my point of view, it was definitely different. I think
The Death of Electric Circus.
Electric Jesus.
Electric Jesus. Sorry. I know, because circus in my head there. But just for people out there, at that time, that album, I know I read somewhere, you can speak about it if you don't want to. You were both hit at the time with something close to you. And there
was a lot. It was Andy's mother passed away. My dad passed away. Our good friend Pete, was it his father or his mum? Was it?
I think it was his mum.
It's a lot to deal with at the one time. Because
it was. I know, like, you can obviously when you hear it and listen to the lyrics, you would know that there was something going on. But we did, you know, it is a bit darker, the album. It's actually my favourite album of ours. It's weird to say that, but...
but it was a time, like, you know, that was a time that probably there was... a lot of musicians are going to... Everybody looks at grief in different ways. And creative people sometimes use the pen and not use it as a force of healing. And a force of well-being for yourself. Completely. Is that all right to say? You know,
100%.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I'm dealing at the minute. I'm sort of doing a bit of looking into Taoism and the way the Taoists talk about flow.
Yeah.
Getting into flow state.
Yeah.
And I was talking with Mickey Bartlett about this the other week, and he was saying about. So when I said that, I mean, what is that? He was very interested, and so we started to talk about that. But I realised when I'd heard about Taoism, and that's a Chinese philosophy and religion. But when I'd heard about it, I'd realised that I'd been doing it for years. flow state writing, stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
But that album in particular, there's a song on it called "We're Just the Right Distance from the Sun," and it's not a very Bonnevilles-y song. It's one of our fan favorites. Fans they like it a lot as well. Though we don't play it out very often. But it is literally about my mother dying. I actually describe her disease in that, and I didn't know. It was a year later before I was going, Jesus Christ,
you put it down.
And that's that flow. So you talk about the healing.
Yeah.
And that was all coming out of me. And
It's powerful.
I used that album to heal, without a doubt.
Yeah.
But my brother and my sisters didn't have what I had.
Yeah.
And they struggled on for years.
Yeah.
So I was able to...
You were able to adapt and use what tools you had, and you too, Chris, to, I suppose... because times like that, they're just come upon you, and they do different things to different people, as you were saying. But you're here now. It's I think the opposite side of it is it's a nod to two great people that have went on to the great spirit world too. So that's a positive thing. So the likes of when you were saying earlier on about touring and things like that, there we were chatting and just about like Brexit now and things like that's going on for. I know I chatted to different bands about that the extra costs that might come aboard, or do you now decide to go from the Dublin out, or for people out there, is there, what's your thinking on that, and has it been it hasn't been a, like, I was talking to a gentleman one day in here, and he says, lads, that it's sort of like there's good things to be had, what's going on, but at the same time there's disruption that needs to be healed, and I was talking about musicians. So what's your thoughts on that?
I don't know what the good stuff is. I'd like to know what he meant by that. But
I think we don't really know the answer.
Yeah.
I don't, because I actually at this point don't know what is allowed. All I do know is we both have Irish passports, so we should be able to do what we were able to do, or we did before, I think. Yeah,
and I think that too. That's why I'm asking. And for yourselves, especially yourselves that do go around Europe and think different things like that sometimes people aren't aware of tariffs and roads and the different.
Oh, well, listen. If anybody. As you said, that doesn't know. We had to deal with this on that tour when we go into Serbia, because Serbia is not in the EU. So you've got to do the Ada Carnet. You've got to do the list of everything that's in. We had to bribe border guards.
Well, funny
merch.
You say that.
With merch.
Well, another band on here spoke about that there, about the 20 Benson and some money, and so for people out there just would probably be thinking this couldn't have happened.
I tell you what we had to do. We go to the border, right? So Serbia is not in the EU, so you're leaving the EU, you're going into a third country, and which is what UK has done to itself, which is what Britain has made of itself. So we went to the border. I was driving. The guy that was working was with us, Alex, great fella. He was a Serbian. He booked that tour for that region, and he said, you go out because you're the driver. So when you open up the van, they'll want the driver to go out. So I had the idea. He was telling us about what the crack was. What they do is they'll literally count all the CDs, they'll count all the T-shirts, they'll count the guitars.
Is that to know what you're selling?
They know what's going out. And then when you go out, they'll check all. If they want to, they can be real dicks about it, or they can just let you go on. So I says, well, I had this.
What's your experience like?
Well, I took a box of CDs, right, and I set them at the front. So all the merch was all buried at the front, the back, in the middle of the van. Everyone was piled on top of it.
Pure NA guys. Hater.
I took one box of CDs.
Hater, don't say that. Look, a rapper there.
I took one box of CDs, set it at the door, and opened it, and split it, made it look like it was falling about. Right? So when they opened, they go, "What's that?" And I go, "Oh, that's just free promos. We give those away. Do you want one?" And they go, "Oh, okay." And they took one, and the guy in the office, he wants one as well. So he took one as well. And we're going to play a gig. Do you want me to put you on the door at the gig? And we'll go,
Andy, you're doing this about much with T-shirts, and then you throw it out CDs.
No, he's doing it again. Giving free stuff away.
We stuck them on the door. We stuck the border guards on the door at the gig, and we give them a load of CDs, and they let us through. But that's what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
you know, so if you're coming from England, if you're English, you don't have Irish passports, you're not coming. That's what you're going to be dealing with going to France.
Every border.
Yeah. So it's going to be so I suppose in a way, hopefully what we're saying is that those that can go out through the Irish passport, hopefully that'll change.
Well, I did read something recently that they're allowing it to go ahead for musicians. They still have the same status as being in the EU.
No, they were trying to, but the British government turned it down.
Really?
The EU offered it, and the British government said no.
So everybody would have flowed the same way.
Yeah, so they said they can have Michel Barnier, I think it was, he said you can have an artist visa, which means that you can get it on spot. So if you're an artist, so say, right, can you come to Berlin for a gig when tomorrow? You can get it straight away. You can get it at maybe you can get it at the airport.
That's
so it's
good.
a quick thing.
Yeah.
But the British government turned it down and said, no, we don't want that.
So you probably just have to go the other way down below and across, and hopefully
we will.
Yeah.
And well, at least we've got that option. But we have loads of friends, and sure you have yourself in England, and Scotland, and Wales. Yeah. And my heart's breaking for them.
Yeah, getting new jobs.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah. And you like just on that landscape, that you know, there's been a lot of devastation, hasn't there, lads? With a lot of creative people from all walks, and the whole COVID thing, you know, fear, and we're fear. And now we're starting to open up, which is fine. But it's about, you know, I suppose it's the same thing, trying to get people back out to gigs. You're going to gig a night and it's sold out, which is brilliant. And I mean, but maybe another act booked somewhere, that mightn't be the case because people aren't going out. They're not following, you know, how long it'll take to actually get that going again. You know what I mean? So, I mean,
everybody's built a bar in their garden.
Everybody has got a bar now. It's about years ago, right? They were called shebeens, right? And you were the word, go to the shebeen. Which one? The green door. Just knock, and they came out with cans or weird potching. They would just blank in your eyes, and you wouldn't wake up for 2 days or something. But hey, it was some night's crack, right? So now the legal shebeens is, I've got a bar in the back of my garden, me and Alistair, right? So what's your thoughts on that? Is that, I know it's good for people, right? But does it take away, like I noticed even in a local town after COVID, or during COVID, a few bars are closed and they're not opening again.
Is that right?
So I think in rural areas that's commonly happening now. So I don't know, like, so I suppose, you know, just that whole stop, start, stop, and then out, you know, what?
I mean, I would hate to see, I hate seeing bars close. I love bars. I love bar life. I love what they do offer. I do see them as being part of the community, such as this. Yeah. For us as musicians, the connection's obvious. You know, it's right there in your face. You understand why people build. My neighbour built a bar in his backyard, and it's better than most bars. Yeah, you want to see it. This thing is fantastic. And I have a cousin, he's a joiner. The
joiner guys don't belong knocking it out.
Ridiculous.
You know, they knock it out in no time. And you're standing there turning the sleeveless t-shirt. Hey, buddy, that's it now, Chris. Here, is that you happy, Chris? Lad, I wasn't even waking up. You that whole thing built. You know, no one else.
Fantastic. But it's the amount of bars that have been closing across the world, I would say.
I think it's something that's happening. But the way I'm bringing that up is that I noticed even, I suppose, in the UK and different places, there's venues going under, but that's due to developers wanting, as you know, to build, you know. Yeah. And but the likes of yourselves, just before COVID, you want to tell the people out there, you were about to start a gig night, a club night, in your hometown, Flurgan. Do you want to tell the people out there, Andy, what that was about, and what's your thoughts, you and Chris, on it, and why you started it?
Well, probably the reason why you started something like this, just because, why not? It's a thing that needs happening. Yeah. So there was a venue in the town, the Railway Bar, and it's owned by two fantastic people who, Noel, the owner of the bar, gave me £100 for my first ever demo that I ever did in a band when I was 20.
So you go back a long way with us.
We all go back. Yeah. Richie, who's my mate who we're doing this with, he worked in that bar when he was a young fella. Noel signed his first mortgage for him to get him his first mortgage when he was married and had their first kid. My wife worked in the bar for years. Her father was a musician in the bar for years. He has a residency in the bar. And the place, it's a great venue. Small enough venue, but it's a great venue and it's not being used. And there's nothing else going on in the town. So he says it's
people should know that too that I found extraordinary. How many people lives in your own?
Oh, it's almost 80,000.
80,000 people,
And
that that amount of people. To
there's
think
no
that,
venue.
Do you know that's so? You definitely have stepped upon something that needs to happen,
Without a doubt.
Yeah,
and so using our connections through the band, through the the connections I've made over the years, we're going, well, I can get good bands that are touring, that are coming through and all the rest of it. So we're going to do comedy night, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We set it all up. We set up the event pages. We sold the tickets, sold everything we put up was sold out. Mickey Bartlett was going to do his comedy nights there, and everyone was selling like hotcakes. And then COVID happened. So, as Father Ted said, the money's resting in the account. For anyone that's...
do you want to look to that camera there and just tell them?
The money is resting in the account.
Okay.
Do you know what was brilliant, Paddy? So, we had, as I said, everything was sold out. That was, what was it, 18 months ago, something like that, whenever the lockdown started. In that entire time, we've issued 4 refunds.
People,
hundreds of tickets sold, 4 refunds.
People want to go.
Yeah. Desperate for it. They're still stopping us in the street. What do you think? Do you think you'll get it opened? People saying this, and I always start, listen, by the way, the money is in there. We're not, it's still there.
It's still there.
And
there's a donkey and a big cart. And this boy called Emilio Stantilio. And he's waiting with a big bucket of money, people. You will, it's all right.
They don't want it, but I don't care. I just want you to get it opened. It's a brilliant,
But that's showing you that the interest within your own community,
completely.
that there is a following of people that want comedy nights, that want poetry nights, that want rock and roll nights, they want blues nights, they want with the planning you have.
And the thing is, Paddy, you know yourself, whenever we grew up, all of us here, in the Troubles, you grew up through the Troubles, you don't branch out. You sort of stay in your community. If you go anywhere, you're taking a wee risk, and you've be careful. And then that made everybody sort of, maybe I'm suggesting, maybe made everybody a wee bit more insular.
Yeah.
So then obviously world-class touring bands, they're not going to go through your hometown, right? But that's not what the world is anymore. So people go to Belfast, they go to Dublin, they go to Cork, they go to London, they go everywhere, and they know
who they want to see.
Why is that comedian not playing in my home? Why is he not playing in Lurgan? I can't give you a good reason as to why he's not playing like he should be.
He should be. I mean, Mickey Bartlett being from there.
Yep.
Your own hometown is madness.
And it was brilliant. And we set it all up. The whole thing was all set up. It was artist-centric. So we got Mickey down, and we were saying, right, Mickey, this is the room. How do we make this work for a comedian?
Because he had seen it.
And he goes, well, what about this? Do this, move that, get that over there. We can do this. Say, right, that'll do. We took all the notes. We'll give you a shout next week. We set it all up. Brought him back in. Said, right, what about this? And he went, perfect. He says, I'll have a comedy night in here every week.
That's deadly.
Every week.
And see, what people need to know out there too, for the good people listening, that gives opportunities for the new artists that are coming up, along with people like yourselves, a support slot, or along with Mickey or Connor Keys and these guys that are, as I say, are at a different place and a different level.
You have to have it.
Well, I mean, for people out there, should we throw out a date that's going to start?
Well, you tell me.
This is an ad break, right? So you have to get this right. You have to sell this, not give it away free, right?
No,
right.
No.
So for all the people out there, so what we want is the name of it, where's it at, who's playing first, and then. Andy, ad break. Chris, you can come in if you feel like it. You're scratching your beard there, looking at me all strange.
The club, it's called the Black Cat Club.
Lethal.
It's running out of the Railway Bar in Lurgan, and the first band will be the Bonnevilles, and that show has sold out. We'll be doing weekly comedy nights, weekly whatever poetry. We'll be having rock bands, blues bands, punk bands, soul bands, solo artists, whatever. We can accommodate everybody, and we want to. And we're really excited. There's 4 of us there, including Mickey, there's 5 of us. we're very excited about
There's
it.
five excitable people.
Five excitable
respectable adults winning.
Do you know about respectable now?
Slightly respectable.
And as soon as the government gives us the go-ahead, we'll be doing it.
As soon as the government gives us the go-ahead, we are ready to roll, good people.
Yeah.
Well, just when looking at you and say, you're big, strong-looking lads, right? You know what I mean? And is sports something you do? Or I seen... I was chatting to yourself, Andy. You were saying about you've picked up again. Is it soccer, Gaelic? And do you want to talk about how you keep fit? Is Andy the man? And I seen you with the hurl one time too.
Yeah.
Like, so
a bit of everything. I'm a cyclist. This is what I've come up doing. My family are
because you're fit-looking lads, you know, big, strong lads.
I just got youth on my side.
I'll trade a bit of strength for a bit of youth. No, I do. I came up cycling and raced all for years and mountain biking and all sorts of things. But then recently, there, my mate Richie, who we run the Black Cat Club, he's a coach at a football club. So he asked me, he said, listen, I'm starting an over 35s team. Would you come along, make up the numbers? I have a very, very dodgy knee. I said, I don't think so.
Is that not a bit unfair? You only been 25 and going on there to
this
play.
This is it. I have to dye my hair grey at the sides in order to pass the inspection. But you come along now.
We top up there, make me look older.
Yeah, bend over. There we go. So we're doing that, and it's actually I didn't expect to enjoy it so much. I thought I was just going to go along, make up the numbers, help Richie get that off the ground, and then step off to one side. But I went, no, I love this. So tomorrow we're playing, which is Sunday, which will be Sunday the 29th of August. We're playing a Comedians 11, Shane Todd's Comedians 11 in Knockrammer Park in Lurgan.
Do you know what? I can imagine them guys trying to tickle the ball off you and tell you a wee joke so they get it back.
From what I understand, Shane Todd's a bit of he's a good footballer, and Sean Haggerty's playing with him. He's not a Lurgan man as well. He's very good.
But the Lurgan shoulder, it'll stop him.
Well, now
what's the lurking show?
we're not going to get too rough on us.
See, there you are. See how you picked it up there, Chris Banbridge. What is this disgusting thing? What do you do? Do you stand up and you hit someone with the shoulder?
I love how you pronounce Banbridge. Like it's a really fancy place.
It has a bridge in it.
And what about yourself, Chris?
I was big into sport when I was younger. I played football all the time, played Gaelic in school, and then I got into music and just haven't.
It happens a lot when you're into the GA. Like I used to play, I was telling you, and I used to play a lot of hurling, and it just comes a time where you kind of...
Although I really do want to get into some sort of fitness because I've got 2 kids, got a sore back all the time.
Have you got an addiction to Farley's rusks or any of that stuff? No,
just an addiction to Buckfast.
So
fags.
So parents out there, Farley's rusks, spring water, and
Buckfast.
And Buckfast, just to give you that last wee tonic. Well, Buckfast actually, do you want to know, Buckfast was actually
this does not have health-giving properties. It says
Buckfast was, and I'm showing my age, but Buckfast used to be sold in chemists.
I remember that. I remember seeing that
as sort of one of them ones where people would have said about take brandy and port because you've drunk for 5 days in a row, like your stomach is going to be in bad shape anyway, right? So this stuff was in the chemist, and it was like a tonic. It was only supposed to lift you, if you were like, I don't know.
But you're only supposed to take like a wee shot of it,
well,
a wee nip.
Well, that's the thing. But then people caught on. There's a bit of a nip of this, and then they were sort of. Then it just the monks blessed it and sent it out to the world, and
so tasty.
They call it off.
So good when it touches your lips.
It's a rock and roll sort of stable, isn't it? The Buckfast around there.
People take the piss out of me for it because now I'm a bit older and I would still...
People bring it to him for gigs.
If we go on tour,
people bring a bottle of Buckfast.
So just to tell people out there that Chris, if you're ever going to see the Bonnevilles...
Yes, bring Buckfast.
And bring it really fast, right? Don't mess around. And so, like going and back in that there, so the likes of... you guys on the road all the time, and so do you sort of, there's no sense saying you pack a sandwich box in the way, like do you stay in sort of places where you have to cook, and who would be the cook of the two, and sir?
We've never cooked.
We've never cooked. We're staying at Airbnb. You're starting to do Airbnbs now.
Yeah.
So that's a recent sort of thing.
And that's a good thing,
always
isn't
hotels. Well, it means you can cook. So we've done that a couple of times in France and stuff, I remember. But we usually stay in hotels and get our, if we try not to stay in people's houses because they're the band coming to town is a bit of a party for them, but we've got to go to another town the next night, so we've got to keep ourselves.
They see this thing and it's 4 bottles of bucky and sing all night,
and you're going to go, but you've got to look after yourself.
We have done it. We did it at the start. We slept on people's floors, but as we got into it a bit more after years, we realised that we can't do a week long of gigs and stay in people's houses.
Lying on a settee or lying on the floor, all sort of,
and some people would almost think, oh, you're being a bit poncy, maybe asking for a hotel, but it's for the greater good. It is.
Well, there's nothing poncy about it. I mean, the person that you're arriving to, they've just opened the door for you guys at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
They're there.
Yeah.
You have travelled God knows how many hundreds of miles.
You've been driving for 10 hours. We've done that many times. And you have to, it is a marathon, and you do have to pace yourself.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Because it's different. I suppose whenever you're younger, but your tours are only lasting a weekend. It's not even a tour, it's just a long weekend away, and you can maybe go a bit mad on it and all the rest of it. But if you're looking to do it for a living, you do need to
stabilise yourself.
You really do. And what we would do practical things like, we would bring fruit in the van, because it means then when you go to fill up a diesel, you're not going to ban a pasty all the
you
time.
can't buy fruit on a motorway.
You can't buy fruit on a motorway. So if you need a snack, you can do that. Otherwise, you're going to eat 5 pasties a day.
I know. You just turn into some obscure Norfolk-shaped balloon,
which we did all that. And the reason that we do that we know that because we did it wrong for years. Then eventually we went, no, we need to decide.
Because people, sometimes you just want that quick hit, don't you? And you just go in and get that type of food. And
it's easy.
It's easy. And I suppose when you're on the road, fruit and things like that can keep you going.
Without a doubt.
And so the likes of your coming into your third album, you have 4 albums out, right? So your third album, how did that all come about then? You've been together, like, I think it was 2017, 18 we were...
What? I can't remember.
I don't even know what year that album was out.
16, was it?
16?
No. Maybe. Aye. Might have been 16, something like that. We recorded that with Michael Mermika.
2016.
Aye.
Yeah. Arrow Pierced My Heart. That was Mojo Mike.
Aye.
Aye. And so Deadly, but he was up here too with Amy. So he's a multi-instrumentalist. Amazing. He knows his sounds. But was he someone that captured you? Well, he obviously did.
Well, he was a fan of the band. He would come to gigs. And then...
He got us, he got what we wanted.
So he knew who we were. And then the guy that we recorded the second album with, a guy called Walter, he had a studio in Belfast and he closed it down and went to work for the BBC. He still wanted to do the album. So we had a rehearsal room. So he says, I can set up in the rehearsal room. But we wanted to go to a studio. We had
it was that time then, was it?
We had that in mind. So Mike was always there. We were always aware of him. And he always said, listen, if you ever need me, you know I'm there. So Stevie Scullion from Melodeon would be a great mate of mine. And he'd recorded a lot with Mike. Mike was in his band for years. And
our prolific songwriter in the North too.
Great guy. So we ended up going down to Mike and we just booked in for a week and got her done. It was brilliant. And
so for the likes of now the two units going in there as a 2-piece, do you kind of just know right away how it's going to click,
Well, whenever we go,
or is every song a golden song, or do there be ones you go, we need to get this right, it's just not right yet, but there's something there.
We would have the work done before we go to the studio.
Yeah. And but why I brought that up, but do you want to tell people out there why you do that there and rehearse?
Save money.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
We rehearse, we don't actually do a lot of rehearsing as a band because we gig a lot. So we don't need to rehearse.
That's a good one.
And there's only the 2 of us. So at the end of the day, it's not very complicated and we can remember.
Yeah.
If we need a bit of it, we haven't gigged a lot because of COVID, so we did go into the rehearsal room, which we have. And
was it strange meeting each other, face to face after all the...
Just big hugs, probably. But we still, even though we weren't gigging, we're still in contact a lot because there were still things happening, releasing things and, so...
Yeah. But
so it wasn't really strange because we still stayed in contact the whole time.
I think it was kind of weird meeting people outside of your wee bubble in general. But we... going into the studio, we would hit it hard. We would hit the rehearsal room every day for weeks and a lot of the songs too. So I would be writing, and then once you get a batch. So again, back to the old school thing, you would write on and then tour and gig and tour and write and tour and gig. And then next thing you got 10 songs, 11 songs. You go, right, let's go and record these.
So people don't even notice probably that you guys are slipping songs
them into the set.
Yeah. And seeing how they go.
And they change when we play them live then, and we realise, that feels a bit better doing it that way, you know.
Yeah, that's really good, because and I suppose it's a method for people out there. It shows how much you guys actually tour, because that's how you have to do it. It's not that there's any other way.
No, exactly. You can't, we don't have a we don't. It's actually weird too, because over this period of lockdown, I haven't done hardly any writing. Over the COVID thing, I've done very, very little. I thought I would.
Well, you had a solo album out, Gothic.
Well, I did have a solo album, Northern Gothic, but band stuff, I probably should have been doing more of it.
But maybe did you feel like doing that time? You know, when you're not around,
you don't feel it.
I didn't feel it. I really didn't feel it. But going out on the road and gigging again, so we've played 2 or 3 gigs now since this past month or whatever. I'm starting to going out to the studio and knocking wee things together. So it's starting to come back in.
Yeah, and you have your own setup too, Andy. And because I should say too that you've done loads of podcasts.
I do.
So why did you start them? Or was it just the world around you? You want to chat? Because you chat about a lot of different things.
I do. Well, I'm a very politically motivated person, and I wanted to talk about that.
Politics, culture, and other shit. Isn't that what you said?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. But I wanted to. So it took me again. It's that thing we were talking about. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I started doing it anyway, and then eventually I kind of distilled it down into, okay, this is the thing that I'm after.
Yeah.
So politics, culture, and some other shit, and always have sort of a political topic whenever going on. Like last week was Afghanistan, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And then, but always finish with something to do with culture. Try to do it, but about Irish culture if I can.
The human rights aspect is big for you.
Big style.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah. I'm a big social justice warrior.
Yeah. That's good. Like, I mean, and in a sense, because that's what you're comfortable with. And I suppose you said earlier on about growing up in certain times, and I know that myself, trying to move about, even get to a gig was a nightmare. Or even for us to go to a gig in Belfast was a nightmare, you know. And so, well, what about now when you're playing together? Is there new ideas you're going to come out with, or is there any stuff you're thinking of putting out now as a band now that we're sort of starting to open up? And
I think we would need to start. But I mean, so we were saying that we're starting to write, and someone go, "Oh, I expect new albums soon." Well, that's a year at least.
Yeah.
Because we'll not put out anything that we can't stand over, you know. And we'll not just knock.
Like, we've been together, 13 years, 4 albums, you know.
13 years. We never aged one iota. Not one day.
Fresh and clean looking.
Fresh and clean. Daisy, you just walked through that door and a shirt just came down on you, and so it was like a blessing shirt, you know.
It was like an Instagram filter.
One big filter, just following them gorgeous lips you have, you know. And, but look, you have your fourth album as well. I mean, people should know that you're a prolific band. I mean, every few years you put out an album. Is that something you think for any young acts out there now that are listening? We could go down the route about where things are being played now and all that, but we will just say the word Bandcamp. And we'll say Bandcamp, and Andy, you'll say the word Bandcamp.
I'll say the word Bandcamp.
And Chris, you say the word Bandcamp. Bandcamp, for people that want to find all of the band's music. But what's your thoughts on the likes of now the new mediums that are out there, and for a band starting off? Any advice, you know, for young bands sitting out there just maybe listening?
I do feel sorry for them. I think, and although we, again, I'm not going to mention it now for the 3rd time tonight, and it will age us all, but MySpace was a tool that you could use for a long while until it ruined itself, that you could use to promote your music, and we all did.
Yeah.
But now it goes on to the digital streaming services, and it's like you're selling your soul to the devil at the beginning of your career. You haven't even started. Yeah. But it work. Well, it can work. And how else are you going to get your music out there?
The mediums have changed, haven't they?
Completely.
You know, years ago, I was growing up, and sure, you know, Andy, you were looking at the magazines, and you were looking at this, and the band came out and they toured and everybody followed, and you could see certain people. But now, it's great that you're seeing music from all over the world, but the consumption of it and how it's been put across to people and the hurt it's doing to artists.
It's really, it's one of the good things about what we do. We said right from the very start, right, we're making CDs, we're making vinyl, and we're making T-shirts, and we're going to go out on the road and we're going to sell to people to make our living. And that's what we're going to do, which was a completely old school way of doing things. And I remember talking with Declan Legg.
Yeah.
Declan Legg.
Yeah.
Great fella. And I think he just picked up Jealous of the Birds.
He's a music management and producer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he just picked them up at the time, and picked her up at the time. And I went down to his house. I was talking to him, I can't remember what it was about. And he said, so we were talking about, he was talking about releasing singles digitally.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, sure, we don't do any of that. He said, what do you do? And I told him, I said, we print vinyl and we sell T-shirts and we have a record label and they send it to us and we go out on the road and we sell. And he looked at me like I was something from the 1800s. He went, you're joking. I went, no. He said, people buy records and T-shirts in 2016, whatever year it was. I went, yes, a lot of them, by the way. And he went, I said, how many streamings does your single get? He says, it'll get millions. I said, see, we don't get millions of streams. We get thousands of streams. We'll not get millions of streams. So we have to sell the records.
Yeah, that's your part you add on into this whole digital phase that's happening.
Yeah, but on that though, I think it's because of our fans would be more older people, and older people are willing to buy the physical copies.
I think people are now too, though.
Sorry?
Younger people are getting there.
I think,
definitely.
There's a change, and you're right there.
Especially when you walk in the HMV, when you know HMV now has a whole record for section. That's when you know it's coming
changed.
back.
Yeah, and it's strange because I mean, it became this. You know, there was an era there of everything that's new has to disappear and be broken up and thrown away. Do you know? And even the reason I think it was so dear to start to press now, because years ago there was loads of presses, now there's only a few. So hopefully more will come out, and then and then
Jack White, he set up his own printing press.
There you are
in Detroit. Detroit.
There you are.
Just there a couple of years ago, he bought some engineers in Germany, went and reversed engineered the machines because they chucked them all out.
There you go. Just what I said there.
Exactly that. Yeah. Went and reversed engineered them, set up a factory, said, right, we're going to make these. And Jack White went, I'll have the first one off the...
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So, but I suppose it goes right back to the old days of... the old blues artists were on the road. They just went into the machine and printed it, the big rubber style one, and and they filled the cars, and that's why half the tax and revenues after them when they're about 80.
Exactly.
Well, you know, where was it going?
Well, that's what James Brown. I mean, James Brown did that. He a lot of. When you listen to all that early James Brown stuff, early to mid, sort of mid late 60s, that's him on the road.
Yeah.
And every record sounded different because it was a different recording studio.
That's it.
They would go, right, where we're playing tomorrow night, we're playing here, right, where's that? There's a studio there, right, let's go in. And they would go, and then you would hear him telling the band what to do on the record. Right, hit it, we're coming to the break, hit the break. But he would do it as James Brownie way. But that's what they did.
Yeah.
Get the records pressed and then sell them that
night.
And
it's actually nearly come back round again. You know,
hopefully.
And I mean... all them older artists like Chuck Berry and Jerry Lee Lewis, all them dudes done that printing as you go. You know, so so you're just taking an old method and throwing it up to the world now. Well, how do you like Situians unwind when you're on tour? You know, because obviously you're 24 hours together and all. Do you know,
in the same van?
Or do you read books, or is it harmony farts, or what way is it?
We're quite good. We know when we're pissed off of each other. You know, so we know when to give each other space.
Is it?
But it's
well, is it? No, who gives a look? Come on, who gives a look?
It's always Andy being the angry one, like, you know.
That's because you're from Banbridge.
I prefer passionate.
Well, you would read a lot, you know. Anytime we're in England, I would actually go to the cinema a lot. But if we have any free time, but do you know what? See, when we were away, we don't have an awful lot of free time to do anything. You go to all these different cities and you're literally, like when we did a 3-week tour, like Andy was doing all the driving because I wasn't able to drive at the time. And like we were doing 7-8 hours a day, so
Yeah.
you had no time to unwind. You were literally driving.
There was
to a
no,
venue.
basically, there was no look. Oh, look at that statue there.
No, there's none of that.
Look at that
It's re-
riverbank there, Andy.
It's terrible. You don't get that. You go to the best places in the world and you don't get this. You just get to see the venue.
Yeah.
I've got a good story about that. I remember when I first met my wife. We decided to go on our first holiday together. Shelley was saying to me, like, "Where do you want to go?" I was like, "Let's go somewhere that we've never been before, that both of us had never been." So she said, "What about Brussels?" I was like, "Yep, let's go. That's awesome." So we were there for a couple of nights, and then we were trying to find out if there's any music anywhere. And this guy's like, "There's a venue on the road. Go there. It's got great bands." I walked in, and as soon as I walked in, I was like, "I've been here before.
I've played here.
I've actually played in this venue before."
That's mad.
Yeah,
Jeez.
and I was just like, she was like, "Flip me!" Like,
Shelley was trying to find somewhere unique for them too to have an experience because they were going around and go, "Oh, I've been there, I've been there, I've been there." So he's Brussels. But he didn't know he'd been to Brussels. It was only when he walked into the venue because that's all the scene of
You
it.
should have brought your wife up here, lad, to detail.
That's all. But that's what I mean. That's all you ever see of the city.
But that's an example, exactly what you've just said there,
Yep.
happening, and it could happen again in a romantic weekend. But at the minute, so what's the plans for the Bonnevilles at the minute? I know you're playing tonight at the Atlantic
The Atlantic in
Bar.
Portrush.
Have you played there before?
Many times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've always got I'm sure, a solid. I think there's no tickets; it's all gone. And
It's seated, so there's 100 tickets, so it's all.
Yeah.
Well, as far as I know from this morning, it's all gone.
Brilliant.
But it'd be weird though, sitting gig, a bit strange, But
I'll just give it death and
That's it.
close the eyes. I do want to bring up just the story too about Clarksdale. Do you want to tell the people the story about Clarksdale and getting there and the home of the blues, right?
Unbelievable.
So what was the timeline there for people?
it's-
And tell people out there, because if people, I know a lot of people know about the Route 66 and all, but there's a whole
No, Mississippi's where it's at.
yeah,
Aye.
you know what I mean, the Delta and all.
Yeah.
So
well, so I was telling you about Christian Steidel and
Yeah.
the Deep Blues Festival in Munich and
Yeah.
how we ended up getting signed onto Alive Records then from that. Well, the original festival that Christian took the name from, Deep Blues. So there was a guy in America running Deep Blues Festival in Clarksdale, Mississippi. So he invited us over.
deadly.
So we ended up going to the original festival. So we hadn't signed for Alive. We got our record contract, so we printed it out and we signed the record contract on the Crossroads where Robert Johnson sold his soul to the devil. Yeah.
Amen.
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 It was brilliant. So and we deliberately...
Did you do a wee dance?
No.
Ah, shit.
I was buzzing.
Not even a wee copy.
No, I was just walking around like I was smiling the whole time.
everything looks like a movie.
It's the most amazing place. We played Junior Kimber's Juke Joint and we played the festival and we played in Tupelo, Mississippi, and we made friends there and we're still friends with them to this day.
Yeah. But what people should know out there, friends, is that the music you're playing, that was the
It's where it
soul,
come from.
the soul of it.
Oh, it was without it, that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
It comes from Mississippi,
Yeah.
and the soul music that we all grew up on,
Is the next wee extension.
is the next extension.
Because the gospel was they were,
And they all come from Mississippi. All those musicians all come from Mississippi.
yeah.
And the reason it all ended up in Chicago was because they built a train line direct from Mississippi from Memphis to Chicago.
And then Chicago became the home.
Then Chicago became the home of the blues. Then.
There you go.
Electric blues.
Yeah.
And that's so. But all those guys, all those early guys in Muddy Waters,
They were
Howler
all sitting in the rocking chair.
all sitting on their porches in Mississippi, and then eventually took
Hey,
themselves
stole my
off.
land away. And so, but then it's weird because where you are at now and being out there and playing along with acts that and seeing acts that you grew up and being over here, I suppose. Will you go back to places like that, or is that a futuristic? Because I know you're both, you've got kids, and you're like, and that's what I wanted to ask you too. Like, you've got kids and your family life and all the rest that goes with it. Is it hard to juggle everything and then disappear for?
Band gets priority over everything.
You sure you want to keep that in?
Our wives know us well enough.
Well, do you want to
without-
just mention your wives' names, because they do deserve credit too? You know what I mean? I'm just trying to be the devil's advocate and keep your marriages alive here.
Yeah.
And so go.
No, listen, my wife's called Janie, and I've absolutely no problem with giving her complete credit for it. She's carried me.
Yeah.
She's paid bills on a waitress's wage whenever I wasn't putting any money. You know, for years. That happens more often than you'd think.
Yeah.
And she comes from a musical family and all the rest of it, so she understands the life. So yeah, without her, I wouldn't.
You've got a wee angel. You've got a wee angel there,
without a doubt.
We're definitely lucky.
And Chris, what about
Shelley's the same.
Well, I met her. I was in bands, and she's not interested in bands. She doesn't really like music that much, but she knows my love for it, and I think she'd be, she would never stop me from doing anything because she knows I'll just turn into a grumpy old.
Would you just get the slippers on and switch off? I'll watch that goddamn show on TV, 7:30 every night.
That's it. See, during COVID, at my practice room, 3-4 nights a week, I'm just away playing drums at night time.
It's hard to know because people stop you sometimes.
Away from the wife.
Did you see last night what happened on the such and such? And I go over to my mother, she's in her 80s, and she, that's a bad one there. And I'm sitting looking at it thinking, I haven't seen these shows since I left the house. No, do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
I have no interest.
Do you know what I mean by that?
And you don't get the references.
No, I don't know. He's a bad boy there, and you should see what she's at. Do you know what I mean? But so for people out there, just I always say thanks very much for coming on, lads. I could talk to you all night, but I know you have to go. And thank you for taking time out to come and chat to me.
Thanks for asking us.
So I was just going to say, for people out there that listen to the show, and thanks for listening. I always thank Tiernan and the camera, Nathan, Killeen and Stella for taking part, and for yourselves. So just to tell people out there where they can get in touch with you, your merch, and your music and your own podcast as well, Andy. You know what I mean?
Yep. Well, my podcast is politics, culture, and some other shit, and you can get it on all the apps wherever, Spotify and Apple and Google Podcasts. It's all available, and then
it's just all the band stuff. Just search the Bonnevilles. It's all there.
It's on the Bonnevilles.co.uk.
The lads have got a website, the Bonnevilles.co.uk, and the guy with the scarf that was the promoter we were talking about.
That's our desperate bid to remain independent. We've got our own website that nobody visits.
Long live independence, lad. Put the arms in the air.
Absolutely.
Go on, Chris. I know you're posh, but you're not doing. He'll not be getting midday tea, Andy, for that carry on there. Lads, thank you very much. Give yourselves a round of applause.
Thanks, Paddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, lads.